Okay, for our answer keys, I'm going to make them as a audio visual version rather than a typed up version. So let's start with number one. So Ted Koppel is saying, do you know what happened to the price of drugs in the U.S.? Price of cocaine way down, price of marijuana way down. You don't have to be an expert in economics to know that when the price goes down, it means that more stuff is coming in. So what I ask that you do is you talk about what is Ted Koppel's explanation, what would you have to look for to be able to test his explanation, and what are the alternatives? Okay, so with that, so in terms of supply and demand, what Ted Koppel is saying here is that the price is down because there's more stuff coming in. That was his explanation. And we can see that the price is falling right there. So to be able to know whether that's true or not, you'd have to, like, I don't know, find some way to, like, track how much is coming in, right? So you could have, like, shipments or illegal seizures or something like that, something to track how much is coming in. And this explanation, again, is all based on the idea that more is coming in, so as more comes in, the price goes down. But as part C of this, you know, question indicates, there are other alternative explanations, right? The one alternative would be what if the demand was falling? That one would cause the price to fall, and that one would be kind of an advantage of having a benefit of having, like, I don't know, like anti-drug education or things like that, where here the price would fall. Or even another alternative would be is you could have um, the demand increasing, but you could have the supply increasing by more than that. So it could be even a more complicated issue with multiple curves shifting, causing the price to fall. So really what we're saying here is that it's not as easy as just saying one event is happening. It's much more complicated. You need more data to be able to say what's going on. Okay, so now let's look at number 2. Using a graph, analyze the impact of the following events. So here we've got a price of an abacus, price of a pocket protector, price of plastic, and something where we're going to see the cost going down in some way. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Calculators, the price of a substitute is increasing. Okay, so let's go there. So here we've got a price of a substitute going up. So in this case here, if we're talking about the calculator market, then the price of a substitute going up will cause people to substitute towards this calculator, the substitute good. So here the equilibrium price would go up and the equilibrium quantity would go up. Okay, so let's now look at part 2. Now we've got a price of a complement increasing. Okay. So in this case, if the price of the complement is going up, then the quantity demanded of the complement is going to go down. And so if fewer people are getting pocket protectors, then they're also going to reduce their quantity demanded of calculators, because they can presumably consume both of these goods at the same time. So here we'd see a fall in the price and a fall in the quantity. So this is with the complement. Then we've got a increase in the costs. So here we got increase in the price of plastic. So when we've got an increase in the price of plastic, that's going to cause a reduction in the supply. And so now we're going to see an increase in the price and a reduction in the quantity. And then finally, we discover a new technique that allows the same quantity to be produced at half the cost. Okay, so this is actually the opposite of C. So now my cost would be falling, meaning my price is falling, and my quantity is rising. Okay. Explain with words and graph what the difference is between a movement versus a shift along a demand curve. So here, the idea is the change in the price leads to the change in quantity demanded. This is a movement. Whoa. Shit, dude. I don't know how to make this different. Oh, there we go. As opposed to here, so here, so here's our difference, right? Here's a difference between a movement along the curve versus a shift of the curve. And on our graph on the left, that movement along the demand curve is caused by the fact that the price has changed. And when the price changes, my quantity demanded changes. This is the law of demand. In this case, lowering the price leads to an increase in the quantity demanded. On the graph on our right, we've got a shift of the curve. And in the shift of the demand curve, something is changing other than the price of the good itself. It's, for instance, the number of buyers, their preferences, what they expect the future price to be. Any one of those other factors causes an increase in demand. And so notice how the increase in demand that appears on the right is different than the increase in the quantity demanded that appears on the left. Okay, number 4. How do we find equilibrium in a market? Why is finding the equilibrium so important for a market? So, equilibrium for the market is found by allowing our graph, allowing the price to change for us to find the equilibrium. And if we have no idea what the equilibrium price is, which is right here, where quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied. Sorry, it's not very accurate here. But where these two are equal, that's obviously our equilibrium in the market point. But there's nothing to say, there's no reason why we have to believe that we would have found that price right away from the outset. Right, so here's our equilibrium price. Here's my equilibrium quantity. Shit. The idea is, if I get it wrong and I'm at the price way up here, then there's a surplus. And when there's a surplus, that generally leads to price reductions, right? The clearance. And so the price falls. As the price falls, I move along the demand curve and I move along the supply curve. Sorry. And so I would imagine moving along the curve to the equilibrium. Alternatively, I could set the price too low. Now here, there's a shortage. That shortage will generally lead to price increases. And the price goes up, and it brings us closer to equilibrium. But that's how our market basically does our discovery process to be able to find the equilibrium. Why is it important? Because, well, without that equilibrium price, we are going to have shortages and surpluses. Which I guess leads us to number 5. There's really nothing to draw out here. Is saying there is a shortage of a good, same thing as saying there is scarcity. Explain. They are not the same thing. Scarcity always exists. It doesn't matter, even in a free market there is scarcity. Scarcity just means that we can't have everything. We have to make choices. That's what scarcity requires, is that optimal decisions be made. Meaning we can't have everything. We have to make choices. A shortage doesn't have to exist. In fact, we wouldn't believe that a shortage would need to exist if we were charging the equilibrium price. Number 6, describe the process that would occur in a market if the price was below the equilibrium price. Well, I actually already described this on the previous graph, so let me just kind of quickly say here that the process would be is that the price is too low, there is a surplus of the item, and typically the reaction of the surplus existing would be that retailers, businesses, would have an incentive to lower the price to be able to get rid of the product. And as they lower the price to get rid of the product, that if, sorry, why am I saying the opposite here? Go in reverse here. I should have drawn this out. Sorry, I was explaining a surplus situation. I need to explain a shortage situation. So if the price is below the equilibrium price, there is a shortage. With a shortage, with that scarcity of the items, there's going to be an upward pressure on the prices. So that upward pressure on the prices is going to cause a decrease in the quantity demanded, an increase in the quantity supplied, such that it looks like this. Price too low. Upward pressure on prices because of the shortage. And we'll essentially get to the equilibrium. And then the final question, why is comparative statics so important? What's the practical purpose of knowing it? Well, what I had argued was that this is actually the most useful part of learning supply and demand. And essentially what comparative statics allows us to do is predict the changes to the equilibrium price and quantity based on certain events happening. And that allows us to be better consumers. It allows us as managers to be better managers. It creates optimal conditions for whatever the future may hold before the future actually happens. Okay, so that's in essence what I'm kind of looking for in answers for this homework assignment.